Some machines arrive in history not as relics, but as glimpses of an impossible future, crafted at the very moment their world is vanishing. In the aftermath of war, Britain ordered its most ambitious steam locomotive ever, colossal, efficient, and unlike anything before. Yet within a decade, these record-breaking engines were swept aside, their power almost wasted. Why did Britain build the last and greatest steam giants just as steam's era ended? If you want the truth behind the final chapter of British steam and the forces that made even triumph obsolete, stay with this story. In the early 1950s, British railways faced a crossroads. The scars of war still shaped the nation's rail network, and the demand for moving coal, steel, and minerals remained immense. Yet the future was uncertain. The British Transport Commission pressed for rapid diesel and electric adoption, viewing steam as a relic. Inside boardrooms and design offices, a different calculation took hold. Freight needed a reliable workhorse, something powerful enough to haul 900 tons at a steady 35 miles per hour day after day across the country's longest and steepest routes. Robert Riddle's chief mechanical engineer became the driving force behind this vision. He was no stranger to urgent engineering, having overseen wartime locomotive production just a decade earlier. Now, with the backing of colleagues like Eastern Region Motive Power Officer L.P. Parker, Riddles argued for one last push, a new standard heavy freight steam locomotive built not as a stopgap but as a culmination of everything learned from decades of British steam design. Design committee minutes from 1951 reveal a sense of urgency, debates over wheel arrangements, axle loads, and the need to fit within Britain's tight loading gauge. Riddles initially considered a 282-wheel arrangement, but experience from his wartime austerity 210 locomotives suggested a longer 10-coupled wheelbase would deliver the traction and low axle load required for the heaviest trains. Against the tide of dieselization, Riddles' team pressed forward. Their mandate was clear: create a locomotive that could outperform anything before it, yet remain economical on coal and maintenance. The stakes were high, not just for the engineers, but for the future of British freight itself. Production of the new heavy freight locomotive began in earnest in January 1954. British Railways committed to a scale unmatched by any previous standard class, ordering 251 engines over a 6-year span. The build was split between two of the country's great locomotive works. Crewe turned out 198, while Swindon completed the remaining 53. Numbered sequentially from 92,000 to 92,250, these machines represented the last major investment in steam by the nationalized railway. The design chosen was unique among the British Railways standard classes, a 210 wheel arrangement with 10 coupled driving wheels spread across 5 axles. No other standard class would use this configuration. The sheer length and mass of these locomotives set them apart on the network, earning nicknames like spaceships from crews who worked alongside them in the marshalling yards and on the main lines. Each engine cost around £33,500 to build, a considerable sum for the era, reflecting both the ambition and urgency of the project. The 9F fleet was intended to serve every major region, from the mineral lines of the Northeast to the gradients of the Somerset and Dorset. In less than a decade, British Railways constructed the largest and most powerful standard freight steam class ever to run in Britain, a physical testament to the scale of the challenge and the confidence placed in steam, even as the shadow of dieselization loomed ever larger. The design of the 9SF confronted one of Britain's oldest railway obstacles: how to move enormous loads over a network shaped by tight curves and restrictive clearances. Stretching over a rigid wheelbase of nearly 22 feet, the 9F had 5 coupled driving axles and could easily have spelled disaster on the winding mineral lines of the Northeast or the twisting gradients of the Somerset and Dorset. The solution lay in a subtle but ingenious approach to wheel arrangement. The center driving wheels were machined without flanges, allowing them to slide laterally through curves that would have bound up a conventional 10-coupled locomotive. On the second and fourth axles, the flanges themselves were made shallower, further easing the passage around bends as tight as 400 feet in radius. This combination of flangeless and reduced flange wheels let the 9F's long frame negotiate the country's oldest tracks without threatening rails or risking derailment, a compromise that balanced brute strength with delicate engineering. Beneath the boiler cladding, the engineering team turned to the question of sustained power and efficiency. The 9F's firebox was wider than any previous British railway standard, designed to burn low-grade coal with maximum effectiveness. A large superheater extracted extra energy from the exhaust, feeding drier, hotter steam to the cylinders. With the boiler pressed to 250 pounds per square inch, the locomotive could develop a tractive effort of 39,701 pounds force. This was not about headline-grabbing force alone. The figures represented a careful calculation. Enough muscle to start and haul a 900-ton train at 35 miles per hour, but tuned for economical running and steady, reliable output over long distances. Every element, from the wide grate firebox to the carefully balanced wheel profiles, reflected the design committee's single-minded focus to produce a locomotive that could master Britain's challenging network without waste or excess, and do so with a level of mechanical refinement that stood at the very peak of steam development. On the main lines and mineral branches, the 9F quickly earned a reputation among crews for its remarkable steadiness and quiet confidence at speed. Drivers spoke of a locomotive that seemed to glide, even with 1,000 tons straining behind the tender. The wide firebox and careful balancing of the running gear meant that despite its size, the 9F felt sure-footed and responsive, especially on heavy coal and iron ore trains where lesser engines would struggle for grip. Firemen recalled the ease of maintaining steam, noting that the wide grate and efficient drafting allowed for long, uninterrupted hauls with fewer stops to take on water or clear the fire. Most days, these locomotives settled into the rhythm of slow, relentless haulage, 35 miles per hour through the night, coal dust swirling past the cab, the exhaust bark echoing down empty valleys. But every so often, circumstances called for more. In times of disruption or urgent demand, the 9F was pressed into fast freight or even emergency passenger service. On these rare, exceptional occasions, drivers found themselves coaxing the big engine far beyond its intended limits. There are well-attested accounts of 9Fs exceeding 80 miles per hour, their 10 driving wheels a blur, the cab filled with a peculiar mix of exhilaration and apprehension. Officially, such speeds were discouraged. The plain bearings and long wheelbase were never designed for high rotational stress, and management issued stern reminders about the risks. Yet, in the moment, the locomotive's stability and power left a lasting impression. One retired driver remembered that she ran so smooth you would hardly believe the speed. No sway, no drama, just a deep, steady thunder. Despite these flashes of speed, the real measure of the 9F's success lay in its day-to-day reliability. Crews trusted them to deliver the heaviest loads across the toughest routes, winter or summer, with a level of mechanical grace that set them apart from anything that came before. The 9F was a machine built with margin, a locomotive that could do more than the railway ever officially asked, even as the world around it began to move on. Preservation societies and dedicated volunteers refused to let the 9F locomotives fade into silence. Their efforts brought new life to these giants, and locomotive 92203 Black Prince stood out among the survivors. In 1982, Black Prince hauled a train weighing over 2,100 tons, a feat unmatched by any other preserved British steam locomotive to this day. The class continues to make its mark beyond the heritage rails. Locomotive 92134, restored after years in the scrapyard, returned to the spotlight in 2023 when it appeared on screen in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Each achievement reflects the pride and passion of those who keep the 9F legend alive. In March 1960, Swindon Works completed locomotive number 92220, Evening Star. Painted in gleaming British Railways passenger green and fitted with polished nameplates, Evening Star stood apart from her sisters. She was never pressed into the daily grind of mineral trains or condemned to the scrapyard queues that soon swallowed so many 9Fs. Instead, Evening Star became a living monument, the last steam locomotive built for British Railways, preserved from new as a symbol of everything steam had achieved. Yet within 8 years, the entire class was withdrawn, swept aside by the relentless advance of diesel traction. Evening Star's survival is both celebration and elegy, the final chapter in a story cut short by policy, not by failure. Preserved 9F-class locomotives still thunder across heritage rails, embodying a vanished ambition. Their survival asks us to weigh progress against memory. As Britain debates rail's future, these locomotives remind us, sometimes what is left behind tells us more about ourselves than what we choose to build next. Thank you for watching.